Okay, here we go. Here's my second attempt at producing a GCSE revision paper for you to help you with your assessment and to revise from for the main exam. This is a Unit 3 paper, the USA, the Developmental Change paper over 71 years, 1929 to 2000. 3 questions to answer, 2 from Section A. You'll know which ones to answer. It's the topics that we've covered, obviously. And 1 from Section B, which is an extended essay. You've got 1 hour, so that basically means write very fast, have a good technique, and go for it. Don't faff about. Here we go then. Section A. Again, a 2-mark question to start with, as per usual, using the source. Don't spend too long on this. In and out, basically. So, what 2 points can you pick out from this picture to show how life changed for some Americans in the 1960s? The source shows that Americans had large houses, expensive cars, lived in suburbia, white middle-class Americans, leafy green, were wealthy, affluent, etc. No more than 1 minute writing that answer. Less if possible. Question B. Describe President Reagan's domestic policies in the 1980s. A level 2 answer here would secure 4 marks. You're just describing the policies, not explaining them. So, for example, during the 2 terms in office that he had, he introduced an economic policy called Reaganomics. He slashed income tax, he reduced social welfare in line with the Republican principle of rugged individualism. We've heard that before, haven't we? Linked to the days of the other Republican, Hoover, before the Great Depression and during the Great Depression. Going back to the question, or the answer, unemployment and inflation were reduced, and there was massive spending on the Star Wars defence programme and the space race technology. So lots of money on the space race, coming to the end of the Cold War with the USSR, Russia, but at the same time there were many cutbacks and slashing of spending, reducing social welfare spending. Moving on. Look at these 2 sources. Let's go closer in. Can I do that? Yes. What am I doing? Here we go. Look at the 2 sources about young people in America and answer the question that follows. Mrs. West and Anne and Faye, I hope you're going to do this question properly. So here we go. Source B. The American youth should be loyal, obedient, clean living and sporty. After high school and college, his goal is to become a father and to provide for his family. From a radio program in the 1930s. Very stereotypical. Source C. A photograph of a hippie in the 1960s. Free love, free spirit, experimentation in drugs, etc. So, the question is, use source B and C and your own knowledge to explain how life had changed for some young Americans by the 1960s. You must do both. You can't do one or the other. Your own knowledge and using the sources have to intertwine, if you like, for you to get 6 marks. A really good answer would contrast the traditional lifestyle and role of the young all-American boy in the 30s, dressing like his father, okay, wearing clothes similar to his father's, being quite religious, living in suburbia, getting an education, being very sporty, being in a man's type of world, okay? And then contrast that to the emergence of the hippie in the 60s, rejecting conformity, exploring individuality. Remember Jack Kerouac and the beat movement heavily influenced the hippie movement. Anti-Vietnam, free love, free spirit, following elements of the Zen religion. Experimentation in sex and drugs, tune in and drop out of college. San Francisco being the hotbed of the hippie movement in America. So it's about exploration and finding yourself and finding your inner soul. Being promiscuous, opposing war, searching for freedom, rather than conforming, doing as your teacher said and how your father and mother suggested that you behaved. So the sources, going back to the sources, they show you the difference. The stereotypical youth in America and how they should have been: obedient, clean living and sporty, and showing a good reputation, to being quite an individual and following the hippie movement, and how this had emerged from through influences from rock stars, movie stars through the 1950s to the hippie movement of the 60s. Let's get this in focus. The final question is, how important was President Roosevelt to the lives of American people in the 1930s? That's worth 8 marks. This is your big question on this first question. I'd do it first if I were you. I'd get the marks for this question and question C down on paper, so as you know you've banked them early, especially as the paper goes on, as the examination goes on. So how important was Roosevelt? Well, I think you'll understand. You've got to make a judgment. How important, how far, to what extent means make a judgment. Well, he was pretty damn important, wasn't he, really? You've got to describe why he was important and analyse the reasons for his importance. So, he won a landslide victory in the November 1932 elections because he promised the people of America a New Deal. He gave them hope and he inspired them. After the failure and rejection of the Republican laissez-faire policies and rugged individualism, he had a strategy, he had a plan. The plan was the New Deal, and he was going to attempt to deal with the economic crisis. This means he was really important to Americans who were suffering and fed up with the Great Depression as a result of the Wall Street crash. He was going to rebuild America based on the principles of the 3 R's: recovery, relief and reform. He was going to give practical relief and support to the unemployed and the destitute, the old age pensions and handicapped people who could not help themselves out of the Depression following rugged individualism like they were told to by Hoover. He was going to economically kickstart the economy through the alphabet agencies and give people work. You might want to describe a couple of alphabet agencies, how he helped farmers with the Agricultural Adjustment Act, the AAA, the TVA being one of his greatest alphabet agencies and achievements, regenerating the Tennessee Valley, a very poor area of America. Is there limitations? Yeah. Did he really improve the position of women? And did he really improve the position of black Americans? Was he important in the lives of black Americans? He highlighted their quest and their plight, but he didn't change their situation. He influenced Eleanor Roosevelt as well to promote black rights. So he was important to marginalised groups like black Americans and some women. He led America during the Second World War, which was important, as the Second World War kick-started the American economy, and he was a leading world statesman. He battled back from polio, and remember, the American people respected him for this. And so, through having a human touch as well of the fireside chats and prohibition, he connected with the American public, showed good leadership, and the New Deal strategy, the 100 days, the alphabet agencies, and leading America through a difficult time and stopping the banks from collapsing meant he was very important to the national pride and feelings of the American people. There you go, 9 minutes. I've done it. There you go, Ander. See, I can keep things quite short. Over and out.